life these days, am I right? It's
Yeah.
like we're all juggling a million things, work, friends, trying to, have some kind of life outside of all that.
Yeah.
And then someone's like, oh, you should be dating too. But where does that even fit in?
Right.
And that's kind of what we're diving into today, right? This whole micro dating thing.
Yeah, it's really interesting because I think what we're seeing is microdating isn't just this like random, quirky dating thing.
Right.
It actually reflects, I think, like a much bigger change in how we think about a lot of things.
Ooh, okay.
Like it really ties into this whole, gig economy mindset
Yeah.
where everything's flexible. We want instant results.
Like on demand?
Yeah, on demand. Exactly.
Everything's on demand.
And it's like that's kind of played into how we're thinking about romance too.
Okay. See, now you've got me hooked. So
Yeah.
for those of us who haven't encountered this term before, break it down. What actually a microdate?
So things like speed dating, but way more organic, way less pressure. It's all about shorter, more spontaneous meetups. So like coffee, a walk in the park, maybe checking out, I don't know, a new art exhibit or something.
Okay.
You're talking like 15 minutes to an hour, tops.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It's really just about those initial like vibe checks. And it's
Yeah.
not like you're going on a whole,
Yeah.
big evening out.
Gotcha. So it's less about the formal date and more about just seeing is there even a spark here to begin with?
Precisely. And I think that's, one of the sources you sent me mentioned a dating.com survey. I think it said like almost 70% of users felt like too busy for traditional dating.
Wow.
So it's, clearly this is hitting a nerve.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense, actually. I can totally see that. But does this actually work to find a real connection? Can you really tell in just a few minutes if you have that click with somebody?
That's the million-dollar question, right?
Yeah.
And, I think it can seem really superficial on the surface, but if you're strategic about it, it can actually be incredibly effective.
Okay, so what do I mean by strategic?
So I think the key is thinking about microdating as a filter, not like the shortcut to the one.
Right.
It's like it helps you really efficiently weed out the no's
Okay.
so that you can then focus your energy on the maybes.
So maximizing your time and also not dragging out dates that are
Big
dead
boss.
in the water already. I like that.
Yeah. Yeah, like imagine you could go on 5 micro dates and the time it would take to have like one long dinner date.
That's a good point. Yeah. Yeah.
And that's 5 chances to be like, oh, okay, there's a little spark there. I want to explore that more rather than, feeling trapped.
Yeah, totally. With 3 hours.
But, okay, but what about like the flip side of that? Like making a snap judgment based on something really superficial and maybe missing out on somebody who's actually amazing.
Oh,
Just
absolutely.
because the first, 15 minutes felt a little awkward.
Totally a valid concern.
But I think it comes down to, like, what are your expectations going in?
Right.
You're not necessarily looking for your soulmate in that 15 minutes. You're looking for, like, that glimmer of potential.
Right.
Like something that makes you think, okay, I'd actually like to, talk to this person more.
It's like that, that initial intrigue versus expecting fireworks right off the bat.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think this actually brings up a really interesting point,
Okay.
which is that micro dating isn't just a dating phenomenon.
Okay.
I think it reflects something like deeper about where our culture is at right now.
Here's where it gets juicy. Okay,
Well,
tell me more about that.
So think about it, like microdating, what is it really emphasizing? Immediacy, flexibility, even a bit of risk aversion,
Yeah.
even a bit of risk aversion. I can get out of here if this is weird.
Yeah.
We want things fast, we want options, and we want to feel in control. It's like that whole swipe right culture
Yeah.
has kind of seeped into how we're thinking about all areas of our lives.
It's funny you say that because I was just thinking it's almost like how the gig economy and on demand, everything has trained us to be I want it now and I want it efficiently. And now it's okay, now that's also impacting dating.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And this is where, the psychology of this gets really fascinating because one of the big challenges that we see in modern dating is what psychologists call option paralysis.
Option paralysis. Okay, fill me in.
So basically, it's this idea that having too many choices
Oh, I can see this.
can actually be paralyzing.
Yes.
And in dating, this translates into you're endlessly swiping on these apps and you're just constantly wondering, is there someone better out there?
It's like you're at a buffet
Yes.
and there's too many things to choose from and you're just like,
You're overwhelmed.
I can't even.
That's a perfect analogy.
Yeah.
And so the thing about microdating that's so interesting is because it provides like these really structured, quick interactions,
Mm-hmm.
it can actually help with that option paralysis.
Oh, okay.
Because instead of getting lost in this sea of profiles,
Yeah.
you're kind of like actively testing the waters.
So it's almost like you're like gathering data, making these like quick decisions, and then that's informing what you actually want.
Exactly.
That's kind of brilliant, actually.
It's a really cool way to think about it.
Yeah.
So, okay, let's say, I'm sold, I'm ready to like dive into the world of microdating.
Mm.
What are some like tips
Yeah.
to like make the most of these like quick encounters?
Right. Because it is a different kind of.
Yeah, totally. I think honestly, like first and foremost, just ditch the pressure of like
Okay.
finding the one,
Yeah.
like approach it with a sense of curiosity,
Mm.
maybe even a little bit of playfulness. Think of it more as like an opportunity to like expand your social circle,
Right.
try new things,
Mm-hmm.
and just see what like sparks your interest.
So instead of thinking of it as like a job interview, it's more like you're going to like a really cool networking event.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
And remember, like authenticity is key.
Oh, always.
Like trying to be someone you're not is just like exhausting.
Mm-hmm.
And people can usually sense it.
They can smell it a mile away.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Just be yourself, let your, personality shine,
Yeah.
and just see if there's like that natural connection.
It's so funny because I feel like that's advice for literally everything.
It's true.
It's like,
It applies across the board.
yeah.
But you know what? It's easy to forget in the
Yeah.
heat of the moment,
Hmm.
especially when you're like nervous on a date
Oh,
or
yeah.
you're like
Dem
trying to
victimaire.
impress somebody, and you overthink it.
Yeah. Yeah. You mentioned like, choosing an activity that lends itself to conversation.
Yeah.
Any other tips on that front?
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
I mean, think outside the coffee shop box, How about like trying a new bakery together?
Ooh, I like that.
Or like hitting up a local art fair.
That's nice.
Or maybe there's like a cool bookstore that's doing a reading.
Okay.
Those are like quick, contained experiences
Yeah.
that also give you like built-in conversation starters.
It takes the pressure off having to like come up with witty banter
Right.
out of thin air. Yeah.
And also, like, don't underestimate the power of like active listening.
Mm-hmm.
Even in a short interaction, like really making an effort to hear what the other person is saying,
Yeah.
ask thoughtful questions.
Right.
It goes such a long way in making people feel seen and heard.
Oh, totally. And I think honestly, like in any interaction, people just really respond to feeling like heard
Yeah.
and understood. Like it just makes them feel valued. Yeah. But okay. Let's be real. There's like a lot of skepticism around this whole micro dating thing, right? Like some people see it as like a symptom of our like shallow, impatient culture.
Oh, for sure.
What would you say to like the critics?
Yeah, it's funny. I totally get the criticism, but at the end of the day, I think it's more nuanced than that.
Okay.
Like, yeah, I think every generation kind of has its own way of approaching dating,
Mhm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And like micro dating, it's really just reflecting how like our lives have changed. Like we are busy.
Yeah.
We are bombarded with choices
Mm-hmm.
and we are craving efficiency. And
Right.
so, it's not inherently good or bad. It's different.
It's just different.
It's not like a one size fits all solution either,
Mm.
It works for some, it doesn't for others.
Right.
The key is like figuring out what feels authentic to you.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Yeah. So, speaking of the future, like where do you see this going? Is it like here to stay? Is it
I have a feeling it's more than just a passing fad.
okay?
I think it taps into something really like fundamental about how we connect like in the 21st century.
Mm-hmm.
So I think as like technology evolves,
Yeah.
we're probably going to see even more like innovation catering to this like desire for these like quick, low commitment interactions.
Okay, give us a little sneak peek though. Like what kind of innovations are we talking about?
So, I mean, imagine like dating apps that not only match you based on interests,
Mm-hmm.
but they also like suggest like micro date ideas
Oh, I like that.
based on like your shared hobbies or your location.
Okay.
So it's like, the app suggests, hey, you should check out this. Like, new ramen spot because you both said you love like foodie adventures.
That's amazing. Yeah. It takes the guesswork out of like, where should we even go?
Totally, totally. And then, I mean, think about like virtual reality, augmented reality, all that stuff. Like, imagine going on like virtual museum tours together.
Yeah.
Or like attending a virtual concert.
That's so cool.
All from like the comfort of your own home. It's like these shared experiences, but like low pressure
Yeah.
in the digital space.
That is like next level. It's like micro dating isn't just changing how we date. It's
Yeah.
like changing like the whole landscape of connection
Yeah.
itself.
I think that's a really good point.
Yeah.
And it kind of circles back to this idea of like balance.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like how do we find that sweet spot between like convenience and like genuine connection?
Right, right. Because, earlier we were talking about like some of the potential downsides of this whole like, trend towards shorter, more fleeting connections.
Yeah.
Like, is it decreasing empathy?
Yeah.
Is it increasing isolation? So how do we make sure that technology is actually like helping us connect and not detach? Such a great question. And I think like honestly, it all boils down to intention.
Yes.
Like, are we using technology in a way that's like mindful?
Yeah.
That is actually enhancing our relationships?
Mm.
Or are we using it as like a way to hide
Right.
and like avoid real human interaction?
That is the question of our time.
It is. I don't know if I have the answer, but I think awareness is a big part of it. Just that balance.
Yeah. And bringing it back to micro dating then, like how do we make sure that those quick encounters
Yeah.
aren't just like adding to the noise,
Right.
but are actually leading to like something more meaningful?
Right. I think again it comes back to intentionality.
Right.
Like are you approaching these micro dates with a genuine desire to like connect?
Yeah.
Even if it's just for like a brief moment, like are you present? Are you actively listening?
Yeah.
Are you asking thoughtful questions?
So it's not so much the length of the date, it's the quality of the interaction.
100%. Yeah.
And this is where, those skills that we talk about all the time, like active listening, empathy,
Right.
genuine curiosity, like that's where those skills really come into play.
Yeah.
Because you can make someone feel really seen and heard, even in a 15-minute interaction.
Totally.
If you are like truly present and engaged.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so true. It's like not the quantity of our interaction,
right.
but the quality. Yeah. Yeah. But let's be real. There's always that pressure, I think, especially in dating, to like make a good first impression.
Oh, yeah.
How do we like avoid getting caught up in like those superficial judgments and really like see the person?
I mean, it's hard, right? It's a challenge we all face. But
Yeah.
I think going back to intentionality, like what actually matters to you and a partner?
Yeah.
Like, is it shared values? Is it, a similar sense of humor? Like, whatever it is for you, like, focus on those things.
Yeah.
Don't get distracted by the superficial stuff.
So go in with that like vision and don't be swayed by something shiny that
Okay.
ultimately like doesn't align.
Exactly. And remember, like, it's a two-way street, right?
Yeah.
Like, you are also being assessed. So, it's like, be authentic to who you are
Yeah.
and what you're looking for.
That is such good advice. Like show up, let the right people like
Right.
find you. Okay, so I want to kind of shift gears a little bit
Okay.
and talk about how like this whole trend is impacting like our expectations of relationships in general. Do you think this whole like move towards these shorter, more casual encounters is changing how we view commitment and like long-term relationships?
Oh, absolutely. I think it's definitely shifting the way that we like define and approach relationships. I mean, I think those like traditional notions of courtship and dating
Right.
are definitely evolving.
Yeah.
And I think micro dating is like a big part of that.
So what does that mean for like the future of like long-term relationships? Are we all like doomed to this life of fleeting connections and like superficial encounters?
No, I don't think so. I think it's more about like redefining what commitment and like long-term relationships actually look like, in the 21st century.
So it's not about like throwing the baby out with the bathwater. It's about adapting those ideas to like fit our lives.
And I actually think that micro dating can be like a really helpful tool in that because it lets us kind of like test the waters explore different options,
Right.
and like gradually build towards something deeper
Yeah.
at a pace that feels right.
At our own pace.
Exactly. Like, instead of trying to like build the entire relationship overnight,
Right,
it's
right.
like you're kind of building it brick by brick.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, okay, does this brick fit? Does this one fit?
That's a good analogy.
And I actually think that approach can lead to like stronger, more fulfilling relationships in the long run
Okay.
because it allows for like a more organic and authentic connection to develop over time.
But, okay, so, like, brass tacks here.
Yeah.
Does this actually work?
Yeah.
Like, are people finding, lasting love through this?
Well, I mean, listen, no dating method comes with like a guaranteed happily ever after, but
Yeah.
there's definitely like evidence to suggest that,
Right.
microdating can lead to those like lasting,
Wait, that's encouraging.
deeper relationships. I think it's all about like the mindset you're bringing to it.
Totally.
It's not a quick fix. It's not a shortcut to love. It's really about using this as like a tool
Mm-hmm.
to kind of navigate this modern dating world in a way that feels like empowering and authentic to you.
So taking control of your own, like, love journey
Yes.
and figuring out what works for you.
Exactly. And before we wrap up, I think it's worth touching back on that point we made earlier about like the potential downsides.
Mm-hmm.
Like how do we make sure that we are using technology to actually enhance our connections and not like, detract from them? I think, again, it just comes back to that balance, like technology can be amazing for connecting with people,
Totally.
but we have to use it in moderation. We can't let it, take over our lives.
It's like finding that sweet spot
Yeah,
between the digital world and, like, real life.
it really is.
Mhm.
And also just being like mindful of how we're using it, right?
Mhm.
Like, are we using it to actually connect in a meaningful way?
Mhm.
Or are we just using it to like avoid real life interactions?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Yeah, it's a question we all need to ask ourselves.
So it's not about demonizing technology.
Mm.
It's about being, like, conscious, like, intentional
Yeah.
about how we're using it.
Exactly. Like if we use technology as a tool to like enhance our connections and
Mhm.
create opportunities for like genuine interaction, it can be an amazing thing.
So it's not about, like, letting technology control us. It's
Yeah,
about
right.
using it to, like, empower us.
Yes.
But bringing it back to microdating then, like, are there ways we can actually use technology
Mm-hmm.
to make those experiences, like, even more meaningful?
Oh, totally. Totally. I think there's so many creative ways to use technology to like make microdating even more fun, even more engaging.
Yeah.
I mean, for example, like use dating apps to like find someone with shared interests
Mm-hmm.
and then plan your microdate around that shared passion.
So instead of just, like, meeting for coffee, you're like,
Yeah.
okay, let's go to this museum exhibit, or, like, let's go to this concert, or, like,
Is that?
let's go to this cooking class.
Yes. And then you can even use technology to like document your microdate
Mm.
and like create a shared memory, like to take a fun photo together, or maybe you make a playlist of songs that you both like enjoyed during your microdate.
I like that. It kind of takes, like, the pressure off of, like, we have to find the one.
Yeah.
And it's more about just, like, having fun
Right.
and, like,
Mm.
creating a memory.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
That's the spirit.
Yeah.
Like, remember, microdating, it's all about being creative, being playful, trying new things.
Mhm. Mm.
Don't be afraid to like think outside the box and come up with like these unique and memorable like microdate ideas.
It's like embracing the, like, spontaneity
Yes.
and adventure of it all.
Totally, totally.
Yeah.
But okay, one thing I think we can't ignore
Okay.
is the safety aspect, right?
Yeah.
Like how do we actually stay safe when we're microdating?
Mhm.
Especially because these encounters are often so like short and spontaneous. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a good point.
It's really, really important to prioritize your safety. Like first and foremost, always meet in a public place.
Right.
Always let a friend or family member know where you're going and who you're meeting.
Safety first.
Yeah.
Always a good reminder.
100%.
Yeah.
And trust your instincts. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
If something feels off, if you're not comfortable,
Yeah.
don't hesitate to end the date early.
Yeah, you have the right to feel safe,
Absolutely.
secure, and no one should, like, pressure you
Exactly.
to stay.
No one is entitled to your time.
Yeah, yeah. If you're using a dating app,
Mm-hmm.
make sure it's one that has, like, good safety features too.
Exactly. Like background checks, reporting mechanisms, all that stuff.
It's so interesting how technology can, like, be used for both, right? Like,
Yeah.
it for connection, but also for safety.
It really is.
Right.
But, at the end of the day, the most important thing is just being aware of your surroundings and, like, trusting your gut.
Mm.
If something feels wrong, it probably is.
Right. Okay, well, we have covered so much today.
Yeah, we have it.
We've talked about, like, the pros, the cons, the psychology of all this, how it impacts our relationships, even society as a whole.
It's a big topic.
It is a big topic, yeah. But I want to leave our listeners with, like, something to ponder.
Mm-hmm.
If you could, like, design the perfect microdate,
Great.
what would it be and why?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, I think the perfect microdate would be something that, like, really fosters genuine connection and conversation. So definitely not, like, a loud bar, a crowded club.
So more like intimate, low-key.
Exactly. Like maybe it's a leisurely walk through a park.
I like that.
Or like, a visit to a cozy bookstore. Or even like a quiet art gallery. Somewhere where you can like actually hear each other and talk.
Right, like create that space for like meaningful interaction.
Yeah, totally. And ideally, it would be something that like gives you some insight into like each other's interests and passions.
Okay, so maybe like a microdate that involves some kind of shared activity.
Oh, I love that.
Like maybe you're taking a cooking class together or a pottery workshop.
Yes.
Or you're volunteering for a cause you both care about.
I love that.
Yeah.
Creating a shared experience is such a great way to like spark conversation and build a connection.
Totally. And above all, it would just be like a date where we can both just be ourselves, like no pretenses, no pressure, just like authentic connection.
Absolutely. I mean, that's what microdating is all about, right? It's about finding those moments of genuine connection, even if they're fleeting.
So embracing that beauty of like impermanence and like appreciating those sparks of connection, regardless of how long they last.
Beautifully said.
Yeah.
And remember, like even the shortest encounter can have a lasting impact.
Oh, that's such a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like those little moments, that can really add up to something special.
It really can. And, as we're kind of wrapping up our deep dive into this whole world of microdating, I think it's safe to say that it's more than just a trend. I think it really reflects how we're all adapting to this. Like fast-paced, constantly changing world.
It's like dating is evolving right alongside like technology and our work lives and even our attention spans.
Absolutely. And, while some people are understandably like kind of wary of it, I think there's also an opportunity here.
Okay.
Like maybe we can actually redefine what meaningful connection looks like in this like crazy modern age.
So instead of like clinging to these like outdated rules, we're kind of like rewriting the playbook on our own terms.
100%. And I think the people who are going to like really thrive in this world of like micro dating are the people who are like intentional about it. Like they know what they want. They set boundaries and they're just open to possibilities, even in those like unexpected places.
It's kind of like a microcosm of like life itself, right?
Yes.
Like be present, embrace the unexpected.
Yeah.
Trust that like the right connections will come along when they're meant to.
Beautifully said. I love that.
Well, this has been quite a journey.
It has.
We've gone deep on this. We talked about like the origins of it all, the psychology of it, like how it's impacting our relationships, even society as a whole.
The ripple effects.
The ripple effects, yeah. But the real question is like, what did you take away from this?
Yeah. What resonated with you?
What got you thinking?
We'd love for you to kind of like sit with this idea of microdating and how it might or might not fit into your life.
Yeah.
Like what would your ideal microdate look like? And how could you potentially use this whole trend to like create more meaningful connections?
Right.
Whatever that means for you.
Whatever that looks like for you.
Because it's different for everyone.
And that's what these deep dives are all about. Yeah. Giving you that food for thought, that new lens to kind of see the world through. So until next time, happy dating or not dating, whatever brings you joy.
Exactly.
Just remember to stay true to yourself.
Yes.
And embrace the adventure.